Life had a funny way of surprising people, and for Jasmine Taylor, that surprise came on a regular Saturday morning in downtown Atlanta. The summer sun was already hot at 9 a.m. when she pulled into the parking lot of Hope Community Center, where she volunteered on weekends. At 28 years old, Jasmine had everything going for her: a successful career as a physical therapist, her own apartment, and a close-knit family. But something was missing, though she couldn't quite put her finger on what. As she walked into the building, her braids swaying with each step, she heard laughter coming from the gymnasium. The sound made her smile. This was why she loved volunteering here. The community center ran an adaptive sports program for people with disabilities, and the joy in that room was always contagious. "Hey, Jasmine," called out Mike, the program coordinator. "We got a new participant today. Would you mind showing him the ropes?" She nodded, adjusting her name tag. "Of course. Where is he?" Mike pointed toward the far corner of the gym, where a man in a wheelchair was talking to some other participants. Even from a distance, Jasmine noticed his bright smile and the way others seemed drawn to his energy. "That's Marcus Chen," Mike explained. "He's new to Atlanta, moved here for a tech job. Been in the chair for 3 years after a rock climbing accident." As Jasmine approached Marcus, she couldn't help but notice how his eyes lit up when he laughed. He wore a simple blue t-shirt that showed off well-maintained arms. Clearly, he didn't let his wheelchair stop him from staying fit. "Hi there, I'm Jasmine," she said, extending her hand. "I'll be helping you get familiar with our program today." Marcus looked up, and for a moment, their eyes met. His were a warm brown, filled with kindness and something else. A spark of mischief, perhaps. "Marcus Chen," he replied, shaking her hand firmly. "Thanks for having me. I've been looking for a good adaptive sports program since I moved here." Over the next 2 hours, Jasmine showed Marcus around the facility. She learned that he was 32, worked as a software engineer for a big tech company, and had moved from California just 2 months ago. What surprised her most was how easily conversation flowed between them. Marcus had a way of making every topic interesting, whether he was explaining the latest tech trends or sharing funny stories about his adventures in wheelchair basketball. "You know," he said, as they took a water break, "most people treat me differently when they see the chair. They either get awkward or start acting overly helpful. But you're just normal about it." Jasmine smiled, wiping some sweat from her forehead. "Well, I'm a physical therapist. I work with people recovering from injuries every day. Plus, my grandma always said, it's not the package that matters, it's what's inside." Marcus laughed. "Your grandma sounds wise. Mine just keeps trying to set me up with her mahjong partner's daughter." They spent the rest of the morning playing wheelchair basketball with the other participants. Jasmine was impressed by Marcus's skill. He moved his chair with grace and precision, scoring several baskets. She noticed how he helped newer players, showing them techniques for better control. As the session wound down, Marcus wheeled over to her. "Hey, I know this might sound forward. Would you maybe want to grab coffee sometime? I'm still new to the city, and it'd be nice to know someone outside of work." Jasmine felt her heart skip a beat. Was he asking her out? She hadn't dated anyone in over a year, focusing instead on her career. And dating someone with a disability, that would bring its own unique challenges. But there was something about Marcus that made her want to know more. "I'd like that," she said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. They exchanged numbers, and as Jasmine watched Marcus leave the gym, she had a strange feeling that this Saturday morning had changed something important in her life. She didn't know yet that this was the beginning of a love story that would challenge everything she thought she knew about life, love, and the power of seeing beyond the surface. What she did know was that for the first time in a long time, she was excited about getting to know someone new. And that feeling, she decided, was worth exploring. A week after their first meeting, Jasmine sat nervously at Sweet Bean Cafe, checking her phone every few minutes. She had arrived 15 minutes early for her coffee date with Marcus, wearing her favorite yellow sundress and small gold earrings. The cafe was one she had suggested because she knew it had good wheelchair access and friendly staff. At exactly 2 p.m., Marcus wheeled through the door. He looked different from the gym, wearing a crisp blue button-down shirt and dark jeans. His hair was neatly styled, and he carried a small gift bag in his lap. When he spotted Jasmine, his face lit up with that now familiar warm smile. "Sorry if I'm late," Marcus said, maneuvering his wheelchair to the table. Traffic was crazy on Peachtree Street. You're right on time, Jasmine replied, feeling butterflies in her stomach. I just got here myself. This was a small lie, but it made things less awkward. Marcus placed the gift bag on the table. I brought something for you. It's nothing big, just to thank you for being so welcoming last week. Inside was a beautiful notebook with pressed flowers on the cover. You mentioned you like writing down your thoughts, so. Jasmine touched the notebook gently, touched by his thoughtfulness. This is beautiful, Marcus. Thank you. They ordered their drinks, a caramel latte for Jasmine and black coffee for Marcus, and began talking. Hours passed like minutes as they shared stories about their lives. Marcus told her about growing up in California with his Chinese parents who ran a small restaurant. He described his life before the accident, his love for rock climbing, and how he had to rebuild his world afterward. The hardest part wasn't the physical stuff, he explained, stirring his second cup of coffee. It was accepting that life would be different, but not worse, just different. Jasmine listened, fascinated by his strength and positive outlook. She shared stories about her own life too. Growing up in Atlanta with her 3 sisters, her journey to become a physical therapist, and her close relationship with her grandmother who raised her after her parents passed away in a car accident when she was 12. My grandma always says that God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers, Jasmine said, then immediately worried it might sound insensitive. But Marcus just smiled. Your grandma and my mom would get along great. They both seemed to have wisdom for everything. As the afternoon went on, they discovered they had more in common than they thought. They both loved scary movies, hated cilantro, and shared a dream of traveling the world. Marcus showed her pictures on his phone of adaptive sports competitions he participated in, including wheelchair basketball tournaments and adaptive skiing. People think being in a wheelchair means life stops, he said, showing her a photo of himself skiing down a mountain. But it just means finding new ways to do things. Their conversation was interrupted when Jasmine's phone buzzed, her sister reminding her about family dinner. She was shocked to see that 3 hours had passed. I hate to end this, she said, genuinely disappointed. But I have to go to my sister's house for dinner. It's a Sunday tradition. Marcus nodded understandingly. Family's important. I get that. He paused, then added with a hint of nervousness, but maybe we could do this again. Maybe dinner next time? Jasmine felt her heart jump a little. I'd really like that. As they left the cafe, Marcus insisted on rolling alongside her to her car, even though his was parked in the opposite direction. At her car, there was a moment of awkward sweetness. How do you say goodbye on a first date when one person is in a wheelchair? Marcus solved the problem by reaching up and gently taking her hand. Thank you for today, Jasmine. It's been the best afternoon I've had since moving to Atlanta. Jasmine squeezed his hand back, feeling warmth spread through her chest. Me too. As she drove home later, Jasmine couldn't stop smiling. She had expected the date to be nice, maybe even interesting, but she hadn't expected to feel such a strong connection. Her grandmother's words came back to her. Love doesn't care about packaging. It cares about what's in the heart. For the first time, Jasmine truly understood what those words meant. She was already looking forward to their next date, and the thought both excited and scared her. Something special was beginning, and she could feel it in her bones. 3 months after their first date, Marcus and Jasmine faced their biggest challenge yet, meeting each other's families. They decided to do it on the same weekend, starting with Marcus's parents on Saturday and Jasmine's family on Sunday. Saturday morning arrived with Jasmine standing in front of her mirror, changing her outfit for the 4th time. She finally settled on a conservative blue dress that her best friend said made her look respectful but still cute. Marcus had warned her that his Chinese parents were traditional, and she wanted to make a good impression. When Marcus picked her up in his specially modified car, you could tell she was nervous. Relax, he said, using the hand controls to guide the car onto the highway. They're going to love you, though I should warn you, my mom will probably try to feed you until you burst. They arrived at a small house in the suburbs, where Marcus's parents had moved after following him to Atlanta. Before they could reach the front door, it flew open. A small Chinese woman in her 60s rushed out, followed by a tall, serious-looking man. Marcus, you're late, his mother said, then turned to Jasmine with a warm smile. And you must be Jasmine. Come in, I made too much food. Marcus whispered to Jasmine, see, Told you about the food. Inside, the house smelled amazing. The dining table was covered with dishes, dumplings, noodles, fish, and things Jasmine couldn't name but wanted to try. Mrs. Chen had even attempted to make mac and cheese, having heard it was Jasmine's favorite food. Mrs. Chen, everything looks wonderful, Jasmine said sincerely. Call me Ming, Marcus's mother insisted. Mrs. Chen is my mother-in-law. Throughout lunch, Jasmine noticed how Marcus's parents had arranged their house to be wheelchair-friendly, with wide spaces between furniture and everything at reachable heights. It showed their love and acceptance of their son's condition, even if they rarely spoke about it directly. Mr. Chen was quiet at first, but he opened up when Jasmine asked about his restaurant back in California. Soon he was sharing funny stories about Marcus as a child, making everyone laugh. He was always so stubborn, Mr. Chen said proudly. After accident, doctors say maybe he never work again. But Marcus say no, he will work, he will live good life. And now look, good job, nice car, and beautiful girlfriend too. Jasmine felt herself blush at the compliment, but she also saw something else in Mr. Chen's eyes. Worry. Later, while helping Ming in the kitchen, she understood why. You know, Ming said quietly, after Marcus's accident, we worried no one would want to marry him. In our culture, some people think disability is bad luck. She touched Jasmine's arm gently, but then he meets you, and we see him smile again like before accident. Jasmine felt tears in her eyes. He makes me smile too. The next day, it was Marcus's turn to be nervous as they headed to Jasmine's grandmother's house for Sunday dinner. Her entire family would be there, her grandmother, 3 sisters, their husbands, and 5 nieces and nephews. What if the kids are scared of the wheelchair? Marcus worried. Jasmine laughed. Trust me, my nieces and nephews aren't scared of anything. She was right. Within minutes of arriving, Marcus had 2 kids sitting on his lap while he showed them how to do wheelies in his chair. Jasmine's grandmother, Mama Rose, watched from her porch chair with approval. That man got joy in his heart. Mama Rose declared, you can see it shine right through him. Jasmine's sisters welcomed Marcus warmly, though her oldest sister Sarah pulled her aside at one point. Are you sure about this, Jas? Sarah asked. Life won't be easy. People will stare, make comments. They already do, Jasmine replied firmly. We're an interracial couple in Georgia. But when I'm with Marcus, I don't care what anyone else thinks. He makes me happy. By the end of the weekend, both families had given their blessing in their own ways. Ming had packed enough leftovers to feed them for a week. Mama Rose had invited Marcus to next Sunday's dinner, saying, This family dinner ain't optional, you hear? As they drove home Sunday night, Marcus reached over and squeezed Jasmine's hand. That wasn't so bad, was it? Jasmine smiled, squeezing back. No, it wasn't bad at all, it was perfect. And it was, despite their differences, cultural, physical, racial, their families had seen what they saw in each other, love, respect, and joy. The road ahead might not be easy, but they would face it together, supported by the love of both their families. 6 months into their relationship, Marcus and Jasmine faced their first real challenge. It started on a regular Tuesday when Marcus didn't answer his phone. Jasmine tried not to worry at first. He was probably just busy at work. But when she hadn't heard from him by evening, something felt wrong. At 8 p.m., her phone finally rang. It wasn't Marcus. It was the hospital. Miss Taylor, you're listed as Mr. Chen's emergency contact. He's been admitted to Atlanta General Hospital. Jasmine's heart stopped for a moment. She grabbed her keys and was in her car before the nurse finished explaining. Apparently, Marcus had developed a serious infection from a small pressure sore, a common risk for wheelchair users. His fever was high, and he needed immediate medical attention. When Jasmine rushed into the hospital room, she found Marcus looking pale and tired, but still trying to smile. I'm sorry, he said weakly. I didn't want to worry you. I thought I could handle it myself. Jasmine wanted to be angry at him for not calling her sooner, but seeing him in the hospital bed made her forget all about being mad. Instead, she took his hand and said firmly, We're partners now. You don't have to handle things alone anymore. The next week was tough. Marcus needed to stay in the hospital for treatment, and Jasmine split her time between work, the hospital, and updating both their families. Ming wanted to fly in from California where she was visiting relatives, but Marcus convinced her to stay, saying Jasmine was taking good care of him. And she was. Jasmine used her knowledge as a physical therapist to help the nurses position Marcus properly. She learned everything she could about preventing future pressure sores. She even brought his laptop so he could work from his hospital bed when he felt strong enough. During one of their long nights in the hospital, Marcus opened up about his fears. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm being fair to you," he said quietly, watching the IV drip. "This is my life: hospitals, infections, constant health issues. You're young and beautiful. You could have an easier life with someone else." Jasmine put down the magazine she was reading and looked at him seriously. "Let me tell you something, Marcus Chen. My daddy died when I was 12. Mama Rose taught me that life isn't about easy. It's about love. And I love you." It was the first time either of them had said those words. Marcus's eyes got wide, and then he smiled, that same bright smile that had first caught her attention at the community center. "I love you too," he said. "But are you sure about this life?" Instead of answering right away, Jasmine pulled out her phone and showed him something, an online course she'd enrolled in about advanced care for people with spinal cord injuries. "I signed up last week," she explained. "I want to understand everything about your condition. Not because I have to, but because I want to. This is our life, not just yours." Marcus started to cry, which he blamed on the medication, but they both knew better. The hospital's stay changed their relationship. It made them stronger, more honest with each other. Marcus learned to ask for help when he needed it, and Jasmine learned that loving someone means accepting all parts of their life, the good and the challenging. When Marcus was finally released from the hospital, they had a small celebration at his apartment. Their families joined on video call, and Mama Rose led everyone in a prayer of thanks. Ming cried happy tears seeing her son looking healthy again, and Mr. Chen actually smiled, which Marcus said was rarer than a solar eclipse. That night, after everyone had signed off and they were alone, Marcus took Jasmine's hand. "Thank you," he said. "Not just for taking care of me, but for loving me enough to want to learn about all of this. For not running away when things got hard." Jasmine squeezed his hand. Running away was never an option. "Besides," she added with a smile, "you're stuck with me now. Mama Rose already added you to the family prayer list, and you know there's no escaping that." They laughed together, and in that moment, both knew that while their path might not be the easiest, it was exactly where they were meant to be. Their love had been tested, and it had grown stronger through the challenge. 1 year into their relationship, Marcus had a secret. For 3 months, he had been planning something special, making phone calls when Jasmine wasn't around and having mysterious meetings with her sisters. Even Mama Rose was in on the plan, which was a miracle because that woman usually couldn't keep a secret to save her life. The plan started on a Saturday morning when Jasmine's sister Sarah picked her up for what she thought was a regular shopping trip. But instead of going to the mall, Sarah drove to their favorite beauty salon. "Surprise!" her sisters yelled when she walked in. "Spa day!" Jasmine was confused but happy as they pampered her with a massage, manicure, pedicure, and hairstyling. Her sisters kept giggling and checking their phones, but nobody would tell her what was going on. "Just enjoy yourself," her youngest sister Rachel said, while getting her own nails done. "You deserve it." Meanwhile, Marcus was at his apartment with his best friend Tony, nervously checking everything for the 100th time. The ring was safely in his pocket. A beautiful diamond with small sapphires on either side, just like Jasmine had admired in a jewelry store window months ago. "Bro, relax," Tony said, adjusting the decorations. "She's going to say yes. That woman loves you more than my grandma loves her soap operas." Marcus wheeled around the apartment, making sure everything was perfect. He had transformed his living room into a memory gallery. Photos hung from silver strings at wheelchair height, pictures of their first date, family dinners, hospital stays, happy moments, and challenging times. Each photo had a small note attached, describing why that moment was special to him. At 4 p.m., Sarah brought Jasmine back home. "Change into this," she said, handing her sister a beautiful purple dress, Jasmine's favorite color. "Then come downstairs. Someone's waiting for you." Confused but excited, Jasmine changed quickly. When she came downstairs, she found Marcus waiting in the parking lot, looking handsome in a suit. His wheelchair was decorated with tiny lights. "What's all this?" she asked, smiling. "You'll see," he replied mysteriously. "Ready for an adventure?" He led her to his apartment building, but instead of going to his floor, they went to the rooftop garden. Jasmine gasped when the elevator doors opened. The entire roof had been transformed with lights, flowers, and music playing softly in the background. Both their families were there, trying and failing to hide behind plants. "Marcus, what did you do?" Jasmine whispered, tears already forming in her eyes. He guided her through the photo gallery he had created, stopping at each memory to share what it meant to him. At the last photo, simple selfie of them laughing at the community center where they first met, he stopped. "Jasmine Taylor," he said, his voice shaking a little, "this past year has taught me something important. Love isn't about being perfect. It's not about having a perfect body or a perfect life. It's about finding someone who makes your imperfect life perfectly complete." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. A collective gasp came from behind the plants where their families were hiding. "I can't get down on one knee," Marcus continued, "but I can promise you this. I will spend every day of my life trying to make you as happy as you've made me. Will you marry me?" Jasmine was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Yes," she managed to say through her tears. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." As Marcus slipped the ring on her finger, their families burst out of hiding, cheering and crying. Mama Rose was the loudest, shouting, "Thank you, Jesus," while Ming was already talking about wedding plans. Mr. Chen was actually crying, which shocked everyone, especially Marcus. Later that night, after their families had gone home, Jasmine and Marcus sat in the rooftop garden, looking at the stars. "You really planned all this?" Jasmine asked, still admiring her ring. "With a lot of help," Marcus admitted. "Your sisters are terrible at keeping secrets. By the way, I'm surprised they didn't spoil it." "It was perfect," Jasmine said, leaning down to kiss him. "Just like us, not perfect in the way some people might see it, but perfect for each other." Above them, a shooting star streaked across the sky. Neither of them made a wish. They already had everything they wanted, right there in that moment. The morning of their wedding dawned bright and beautiful at Atlanta's garden house. Jasmine stood in the bridal suite, surrounded by her sisters and Mama Rose, her heart beating fast with excitement. Her white dress was specially designed with purple accents, their wedding color, and her braids were crowned with small white flowers. "Lord have mercy," Mama Rose said, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "I ain't never seen a more beautiful bride." In another room, Marcus was getting ready with help from his father and Tony. He wore a sharp black suit with a purple tie to match their theme. His wheelchair had been decorated with small lights and purple ribbons, just like during the proposal. "Son," Mr. Chen said, adjusting Marcus's tie, "today I am most proud father in world." Coming from a man who rarely showed emotion, these words meant everything to Marcus. The ceremony space looked magical. They had chosen an accessible garden venue with smooth paths and a flat ceremony area. Rows of white chairs lined both sides of a wide aisle, decorated with purple and white flowers. They had worked hard to make sure everything was perfect for both able-bodied and disabled guests. Marcus had insisted on inviting several friends from his adaptive sports group. As guests arrived, they noticed something special. Instead of a traditional guest book, there was a large canvas where people could press their thumbprints in purple ink and sign their names, creating a tree of fingerprint leaves. It was Marcus's idea, a way for everyone to be part of their love story. At exactly 2 p.m., the music started. The wedding party went first. Jasmine's sisters in beautiful purple dresses, followed by Tony and Marcus's cousins. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. The doors opened, and Jasmine appeared with Uncle Robert, her father's brother, beside her. As they started down the aisle, everyone gasped. But no one's reaction was quite like Marcus's. When he saw her, tears immediately filled his eyes. "She's so beautiful," he whispered to Tony, who stood beside him as best man. Jasmine walked slowly, taking in everything. She saw Ming crying happy tears in the front row, Mr. Chen trying to pretend he wasn't crying too. She saw her nieces and nephews waving excitedly, and Mama Rose fanning herself with the program, overwhelmed with emotion. But mostly she saw Marcus, waiting for her at the end of the aisle, looking at her like she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. When she reached him, Uncle Robert kissed her cheek and placed her hand in Marcus's. The minister smiled at them both and began the ceremony. Love, the minister said, comes in many forms. Today we celebrate a love that sees no barriers, knows no limitations, and breaks all boundaries. Their vows were personal and honest. Marcus went first, his voice strong and clear. Jasmine, you didn't just accept me, you challenged me to be better. You saw me, not my wheelchair. You loved me, not despite my challenges, but including them. I promise to love you just as completely, just as fully, for all our days. Jasmine's voice shook as she spoke her vows. Marcus, you taught me what real strength looks like. It looks like your smile on hard days, your determination every morning, your love every moment. I promise to be your partner in all things, to face whatever comes together, and to love you more each day. When they exchanged rings, Marcus had a surprise for Jasmine. He had secretly learned to do it one-handed, wanting to place the ring on her finger himself instead of needing help. When he did it, Jasmine started crying all over again. By the power vested in me, the minister finally said, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Jasmine leaned down as Marcus reached up, and their lips met in a perfect kiss. The garden erupted in cheers and applause. Someone, probably one of the kids, threw flower petals a little too early, making everyone laugh. As they turned to face their guests as Mr. and Mrs. Chen, Mama Rose's voice rang out above the crowd. That's my babies right there. The newlyweds led their guests down the aisle, Marcus wheeling proudly with Jasmine's hand on his shoulder. They had done it. Created a wedding that was uniquely them, that celebrated their love exactly as it was. Little did they know, the biggest surprise was still to come on their honeymoon. 2 days after their beautiful wedding, Marcus and Jasmine arrived at the luxurious Maui Ocean Resort. The hotel staff warmly welcomed them, secretly knowing something that Jasmine didn't. Marcus had been planning this surprise for months. You seem nervous, Jasmine said as they settled into their accessible beachfront suite. She noticed Marcus checking his phone more often than usual and making mysterious calls when he thought she wasn't listening. Just excited for our honeymoon, Marcus replied, but his smile held the secret. That evening, they enjoyed a romantic dinner on their private balcony. The ocean waves crashed softly in the background as they ate fresh seafood and watched the sunset. Marcus was unusually quiet. Okay, what's going on? Jasmine finally asked. You've been acting strange all day. Marcus took a deep breath. I need to show you something tomorrow morning. It's a surprise I've been working on for the past 8 months. 8 months? Jasmine's eyes widened. That's even before we got engaged. Marcus nodded, because I knew even then that you were the one I wanted to share this with. He reached across the table and took her hand. Promise me you'll wake up early tomorrow. Sunrise early? Jasmine squeezed his hand, curious and a little worried. Of course, but is everything okay? Everything is perfect, he assured her. Just perfect. That night, Jasmine could hardly sleep, wondering what Marcus was planning. She noticed he seemed restless too, but he wouldn't give her any hints about the surprise. At 5:30 a.m., before the sun rose, Marcus woke her gently. It's time, he whispered. They got ready quickly, with Marcus insisting she wear comfortable clothes. He led her down to a private beach area of the resort. As they approached, Jasmine saw several people waiting. A medical team in casual clothes, trying to look relaxed but clearly there for a purpose. Marcus. Jasmine's heart started beating faster. What's going on? Marcus turned his wheelchair to face her, taking both her hands in his. Remember when I disappeared every Tuesday and Thursday for work meetings these past 8 months? Jasmine nodded, beginning to understand that those hadn't been work meetings at all. I was going to a special physical therapy program, he continued. One that uses new technology to help people with spinal cord injuries. His voice shook with emotion. I wanted to give you something special for our wedding. Something everyone said was impossible. One of the medical team members brought over what looked like high-tech leg braces and a walker. Another began attaching small electrical devices to Marcus's legs. The doctors said I'd never stand again, Marcus said softly, but they didn't know how stubborn I can be, or how much I wanted to stand with my wife. Jasmine's hands flew to her mouth as she realized what was happening. Tears started flowing down her cheeks as she watched the medical team help Marcus with the equipment. Slowly, carefully, with the help of the braces and the walker, Marcus began to move. First one leg, then the other. The sun was just starting to rise over the ocean as Marcus Chen, the man who hadn't stood in 4 years, rose to his feet. "Oh my God," Jasmine whispered, crying freely now. "Oh my God, Marcus." He stood there, shaking slightly with effort but smiling that brilliant smile she loved so much. "I wanted to look into your eyes at the same level, just once," he said. "I wanted to stand with you, even if just for a moment." Jasmine stepped forward carefully, placing her hands on his cheeks. For the first time in their relationship, they were eye to eye. Marcus was crying too now, but his smile never faded. "I love you so much," he whispered. "I love you too," she answered through her tears. As the sun rose over the ocean, painting the sky in brilliant colors, they shared their first kiss standing together. The medical team quietly stepped back, giving them their moment. "This isn't permanent," Marcus explained after they separated. "I can only do this for short periods. But I wanted to show you that anything is possible with enough love and determination." Jasmine hugged him gently, mindful of his balance. "You've been showing me that since the day I met you." They stayed there, holding each other as the sun rose fully over the horizon, marking the beginning of their new life together, a life where love truly knew no boundaries. 1 year after their magical honeymoon in Maui, Marcus and Jasmine sat in their new accessible home's backyard, hosting a special celebration. The occasion wasn't just their first wedding anniversary. They had bigger news to share with their families. "Everyone," Marcus announced, holding Jasmine's hand as their families gathered around. "We have 2 surprises to tell you today." Ming, who had been watching her daughter-in-law's glowing face all evening, suddenly gasped. "Are you?" Jasmine nodded, tears of joy in her eyes. "Yes, we're having a baby. I'm 3 months pregnant." The backyard erupted in celebration. Mama Rose started shouting hallelujahs, Ming burst into happy tears, and Mr. Chen actually hugged everyone. Twice. Jasmine's sisters crowded around her, all talking at once about baby showers and nursery colors. But Marcus raised his hand, quieting everyone. "That's not all," he said, smiling at his wife. "Tell them the other news, honey." Jasmine stood proudly beside Marcus's wheelchair. "We're opening the Chen Taylor Accessibility Center next month. It's going to be a place where people with disabilities and their partners can find resources, support, and community." The idea had come to them during their first few months of marriage. They realized that while their love story was special, it shouldn't be rare. Too many people with disabilities struggle to find love because of society's prejudices, and too many couples faced unnecessary challenges because they couldn't find the right support. "The center will have everything we wished we had when we started dating," Marcus explained. "Adaptive sports programs, counseling services, support groups, and even dating events. And the best part," Jasmine added, "is that we've already received funding from 3 major companies. They want to support our mission of showing that love has no limitations." Their families listened with pride as Marcus and Jasmine shared their plans. The center would be located in downtown Atlanta, in a fully accessible building. They had hired a diverse staff, including several people with disabilities, and were partnering with local hospitals and rehabilitation centers. "We want to change the story," Marcus said, his voice strong with passion. "We want people to see that disability doesn't mean you can't have love, family, and success." As if to prove his point, he demonstrated the progress he'd made with his special braces. While he still used his wheelchair most of the time, he could now stand for longer periods and even take a few steps with support. Their upcoming center would have a physical therapy section specifically focused on new technologies like the ones that had helped him. Later that evening, after their families had gone home, Jasmine and Marcus sat in their backyard swing, specially modified so Marcus could easily transfer to it. The stars twinkled above them as they talked about their future. "Are you nervous?" Marcus asked, placing his hand gently on Jasmine's stomach. "About everything, the baby, the center?" Jasmine smiled, covering his hand with hers. "A little. But you know what? I learned something important from loving you. Life doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful." Marcus pulled her closer. "Our child is going to have the most amazing mother. And the strongest father," Jasmine added. "A father who shows them that nothing is impossible with enough love and determination." They had already started preparing for their baby, making sure their home was set up so Marcus could be fully involved in childcare. They had found creative solutions for everything from diaper changing to baby carrying, proving that wheelchair parenting, while different, could be just as effective and loving. As they sat there planning their future, a shooting star streaked across the sky. Unlike the night Marcus proposed, this time they both made wishes. Jasmine wished for their child to have Marcus's strength and determination. Marcus wished for their child to have Jasmine's kind heart and accepting spirit. But some wishes were already coming true. Their love story, which had started with a chance meeting at a community center, had grown into something bigger than themselves. Through their new center and their growing family, they would show the world that love knows no boundaries, that family comes in all forms, and that sometimes the most beautiful stories are the ones that break all the rules. As the night grew deeper, they held each other close, thankful for their past, excited for their future, and most of all, grateful for the love that had brought them together and continued to make all things possible.